It's time for what America really needs. Faith, family, fitness, freedom. From the home of Pikes Peak, here are your hosts Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan.
Welcome to Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom on 100.7 The Word. I'm Jason Lupo here with my co-host Aaron Lujan.
Good morning, Jason Lupo.
Boy, do we have a show for you.
It's a big show.
We're going to start with the de-dollarization.
Hardcore.
And we can't even go into that much depth. We have additional content on our website, faithfamilyfit.org, that will be up.
Okay.
Hopefully, if we get the file.
It's going to be a short dissertation on the economy and where we're at, and then we're going to have an interview later, right?
And then we're going to have an interview with El Paso County GOP Chair Vicki Tompkins, who we just happened to run into in the office today. And
Ms. Tompkins is in the building?
She's in the building. We're like, hey, come on the show. So
it's going to be an action-packed show. We're going to get into the state of the economy, and then we're going to have an interview with the GOP Chair.
Yeah, let's not waste any time because we've got a lot of content to fill. So, Aaron, go for it.
So the church is paying attention to a lot right now. We're getting bombarded, and I think the biggest issue facing the church, facing the world for that matter, is the economy. I'm of the opinion that the economic crisis that's about to occur is going to be bigger than COVID, bigger than the open border issue, bigger than the election, bigger than anything, because it's nonpartisan, right? The economy affects everybody. Everybody's impacted by an economic collapse. We're in the United States. We're all carrying these greenbacks. We've all been living off the back of the fact that the world's reserve currency has been the US dollar. And I'm going to present some data that's going to convince you that the dollar is being de-dollarized and that we are on the precipice of an economic collapse. So let's step back 30,000 feet and take a stroll down memory lane. In 1944, we had the Bretton Woods Agreement. So coming out of World War II, the financiers sat down and said, we need to have a world's reserve currency. It's going to be the US dollar. We're going to settle all international settlements and transactions in the greenback. So that's going to be crude oil sales, international sanctions, trade deals. Everything's going to be the US dollar. Now, why was that fantastic for Americans? Well, ask a baby boomer, because it led to the most comfortable, most stable life one could imagine, right? So we could actually consume ourselves through debt. We could actually finance everything, whereas the rest of the world really didn't have those luxuries. So we had the highest quality of life, I would argue, from 1944 till present day, because the US dollar was the world's reserve currency. That got threatened in 1971 when President Nixon took us off the gold standard, which said the dollar is no longer going to be backed by anything anymore. It's going to basically be backed by U.S. military might. That was really it. And so that led to the U.S. sovereign debt crisis, because we could behave like a drunk sailor at 2 a.m. with no consequences to our behavior. So what did we do when the United States wanted to spend money? Well, we could just increase the credit card debt, or I'm sorry, the limit to the credit card. So we had essentially an unlimited credit card, and we were at the mall just acting a fool to the tune of 34 trillion. Currently is the national debt. 1.6 trillion of that is just the interest on the debt alone. So if you're a mathematician, follow me here, because I'm not. If I'm making $40,000 a year and I'm spending $150,000 a year, there's no way I'm ever going to get out of debt, and increasing the limit on my credit card isn't going to fix it. I think anybody that's hearing that obviously makes sense. That exact same scenario can be applied to the US federal government. We're spending more, and we have more debt than what we're bringing in receipts. This is not sustainable. This is a mathematical problem that's going to crash. So the money printing got out of control, I think, really starting about 2008 during the financial crisis of 2008. So all of those wars that we've been in, and all of our adventures overseas, and all of our spending has been what they call quantitative easing, printing money out of thin air. And that has led to the devaluation of the dollar. It's the reason why we have inflation, and we're headed towards what I would argue hyperinflation. This is indicative of the price, based on the price of gold. Gold has been surging. It has rallied for the 7th month in the last 8 months to date. The 8th month happened to be the best month since March. So Bureau of Labor Statistics can put out the unemployment numbers. They can put out whatever they want to put out. All of those numbers are BS. It's all political cover for Wall Street and the financiers to basically do whatever they want to do. The true indicator that the dollar is dying is the price of gold. Watch it. Silver's starting to peak a little bit. The fact that we have over 100 countries calling their gold back from the Federal Reserve of New York and the Bank of England shows you that foreign governments no longer trust the US dollar. Saudi Arabia did not renew their agreement to exclusively use the US dollar for their crude oil sales, known as the petrodollar. This was an agreement that had been in place since 1974. Just within the last few months, they made the decision not to renew that. BlackRock, arguably one of the largest asset holders, trillions of dollars in assets, just launched their new digital currency. Don't judge, don't listen to what people say, watch what people do. And the fact that people that have a lot to lose being tied to the dollar are getting away from the dollar. But the biggest indicator that the dollar is on its deathbed is the fact that Russia and China just recently signed a trade and security deal to basically solidify the legitimacy of BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, this international trade agreement that establishes a payment processing system, but something called the unit, which is part local currency and part gold. And this unit, this blockchain technology, is going to be used moving forward by these international governments. And Russia specifically said, well, when you sanction us and don't allow us to participate in the international economy, we have to do something. So we brought this upon ourselves. The dollar is dying. And if it couldn't get any worse, we're looking at a port strike. Jason, I just went nuts right now.
Oh my gosh. So I had to look it up because we were having this conversation yesterday as well. The consumer debt crisis is 17.8 trillion with a T dollars in the United States, a 10% increase since 2023. We have a consumer debt crisis that is out of this world at extremely high interest rates. The American population cannot sustain the cost of living and the amount of money that they have to borrow every single month in order to make ends meet. And eventually this is going to come to a head. And that's where I think we see some of this issue with the dollar as well. If you think 2008 was bad in the housing market with the housing market collapse, just wait until you have mass amounts of default on consumer credit. And I don't like to give Dave Ramsey too much credit too often, but he does have a really good point in the fact that cash is king. But he's missing the fact that Americans at this present moment, a lot of Americans, it's impossible for them to not utilize debt. And we haven't looked at that and gone, hey, this is a problem. Americans should be able to live without having to borrow every single month to make ends meet. And to have 10, 15, 20% of their monthly income go to pay off the debt that they've already accrued. We have a financial crisis in multiple different ways, and one of that is consumer debt. And so we look at all of this, and we have the port strike, and the port strike is going to cost Americans millions.
Well, Goldman Sachs is
dollars.
Yeah, Goldman Sachs is saying $5 billion a day in international trade.
Yeah. And so every price of every good that is imported in the United States through boats is going to go sky high. And we're going to have a scarcity crisis.
Well, it's also going to be a domino effect because if you can't get one thing, it affects the other thing, right?
100%. And then all of a sudden you can't produce the computers because you don't have the chips, right? Because you can't actually manufacture anything. So any manufacturing that we're doing here.
And if you don't have microchips, you're not selling cars.
And this goes back to the point that we as a country have a huge issue in the fact that we don't produce any of our own goods.
We're about to find out.
And we don't produce enough agriculture to sustain our population. We import it.
So based on our current agricultural production, can we feed the American population with that? Or are we dependent on imports?
Not for long. Not for long. And that's the problem is that we as a society have gone into this technological age where the U.S. is looked at as innovators, and we put so much money into R&D, but what we failed to do is consider the infrastructure that's in place so that the United States could act independently of any other country. And we've lost this in our community too. And so when we start talking about the church and the impact that's going to have and what we should do as Christians, okay, we have done a very terrible job of taking care of our own communities. And this is what has led to the welfare system, everything else, because everything that God said, hey, you're in charge of doing this for your communities. This is how you have a healthy community. We said, nah, nobody wants to do it anymore. We'll just give that power to the government. And that's why we have the situation that we're in. That's why any pastor that said that Prop 151, the Family Medical Leave Act, was biblical. It's not. It's not biblical. God did not say, hey, take your responsibility and give it to the government. God said, no, this is the church's responsibility. Do it. Because if you give it to the government, they're not going to do it the way that I told you to do it, which we don't. God gave an explanation of how to take care of those that were in need in the Bible. Paul talks about it left and right. We gave it to the government, and the government did not follow what God's plan was for taking care of those that cannot take care of themselves. Instead, we take care of everybody, even though they're of working age, of working ability. This is why we have the problems that we have. And so when we talk about the de-dollarization, we talk about all of these issues, consumer debt. Go back in your community and say, guess what? Instead of spending money at the Walmart, I'm gonna help support the local business. Instead of trying to, waste my time playing video games, I'm gonna learn how to produce food for my family so that if this ever comes about, I can take care of my own family. I'm going to learn first aid. I'm going to take that 8 hours and learn first aid and CPR in case we have a situation where emergency response is no longer available to help my family out. This is a huge crisis, and the church does not know what it's looking at.
No, we're facing a crisis of historical proportions, unlike anything that the United States of America has ever experienced before. We've never experienced the collapse of the US dollar. The world has never experienced it. This is a mighty empire that's about to collapse, and I think it's going to cause a great sifting. I think that there's huge swaths of the church that are asleep, that are carnal, and they're about to get woken up because the world and the idols that they've been holding on to will be shaken. A good friend of mine, Natalie Runyon, she's author of Raised to Stay, USA Today bestselling book, recently posted on Instagram because apparently she's been getting in trouble for speaking to the church. I turned comments off because people are irrational right now. A lot is happening in the world, and rather than prophesying, the church is panicking. The fact that Satan and the demons know more scripture than people who call themselves Christians is terrifying, and why many will not be ready for what is about to take place spiritually. Get ready, people of God. Persecution of the church and God's people may very well start at the hands of lukewarm Christians who will sell out the moment their carnal lives are in jeopardy. The great sifting has begun. Some of us need to trade our carnal wishbone for a spiritual backbone. And I said this on the other show, Jason, it's going to get me in trouble with MAGA, but Trump isn't going to save you. Trump made it really clear he didn't really care too much about the national debt when he was in office. And this isn't about don't vote for Trump. This is about vote for whoever you want to vote for. If Trump wins, great. If he doesn't, great. I don't really think this election is going to affect what is about to happen. This has been a long time coming. This is the consequence of decisions that were made in 1971.
Well, and to wrap this portion up, we have long believed that one federal office, being the presidency, is responsible for the entire situation that we have in our country, which is not what it is supposed to be. Right? We're not a dictatorship. We're not a monarchy. One guy doesn't control the whole thing. And we've gotten to this point because we have failed to hold everybody accountable, from our local school boards to our city councils, to our county commissioners, to our state legislature, to our state governorship, to the federal level, to the federal House, to the federal Senate, all the way up the top. We've forgotten to care about what goes on in this community, and that is how we've gotten to where we've gotten today.
Amen.
We're going to take a brief time out. When we come back, we're going to have Vicki Tompkins on the show, so hang tight.
Full Armor Sports Teams has a new facility for after-school youth programs. It's located at 2380 Montebello near North Academy and Union with 2 pools for swim lessons and swim teams, a weight room for powerlifting, conditioning, and more. Full Armor Sports Teams is a Christ-centered and family-oriented organization bringing the youth of Colorado Springs together. For more info on after-school and homeschool programs, go to fullarmorsportsteams.com or call 719-629-SWIM.
Welcome back to Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom on 100.7 The Word. I'm Jason Lupo. Aaron Lujan has left the building, but we are joined by a new co-host / interviewee, Vicki Tompkins, the chairwoman of the El Paso County GOP. How you doing, Vicki?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you?
Doing good. So we're like a month out from the elections. Ballots are dropping next week.
October 11th.
October 11th. Like we are in crush it time.
Yes.
What does the office look like right now?
Crazy busy.
Crazy busy.
Crazy busy. I mean, people are coming in and out. They're picking up things to walk with, you know, all the flyers and the palm cards and everything for the candidates. And we also have a GOP store. So people are coming in and buying merch for the Trump campaign and, well, not for the Trump campaign, but Trump hats, flags, those types of things, yard signs. So it's been crazy busy.
I saw that fight flag.
It's gone.
Oh,
we sold them out. They were the first things we sold out.
Oh my gosh. Are you getting more?
No.
Oh, dang it. I have one of those Trump flags that was Trump standing on a tank back from the last election. It's like the coolest flag ever.
Yeah, the fight. We knew those were going to go pretty quick. So we ordered more of those flags than any other flags we ordered. They're gone.
Wow. I guess I missed the opportunity to go buy one.
We even sold the one on the wall.
You sold everything. There you go. So what is kind of the biggest need? So we're a month out from the election. People want to help. Where do we direct them? What do they do?
I think one of the biggest things that's a problem, not a problem, but a problem on our ballot is it's so big. We have, I think, 13 or 14 initiatives, not counting, that's state. That's just state initiatives, not counting the many that we have in El Paso County. Okay, so we designed a pamphlet that kind of helps people, give them a little bit of a direction on how to vote for those issues, because it can be like overwhelming when you're looking at this large ballot. So we have that information in our office. If people want to come and get some of those, they can pass them out to their neighbors, to their friends, to their enemies. Anybody that is a voting age, they need to have this information so they can look at their blue book. They can look at that pamphlet and go, oh, okay, this seems like the right decision. You may not agree with our choices of up or down, no or yes, but at least it gives you some information and it helps you have a little bit of a guidance. Because it can be really confusing the way they were. I mean, these things are designed by lawyers. They're using words that people are going, are they saying yes or no? Should I vote yes or no? So this kind of helps people. And I think that's important because if you don't know what to do, then you don't know what to do.
Yeah, and it is probably going to be one of the longest ballots in Colorado history. I can't remember a time where we had as many initiatives as we have right now. And some of these initiatives are very misleading.
Very.
They're written in a way where you read it and you go, what did I just read? And one of those is the school choice one, right? It sounds like it sounds like it's this great thing, right? But I've talked about it on the show and other shows. And the problem is number one, it gives children the right to school choice. Do you want your 8-year-old child deciding where they want to go to school?
Exactly.
Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And also, I think people think that this is a voucher system, like they're all of a sudden going to get money to Christian schools.
Nope.
But what people don't understand is you actually have to repeal an entire portion of the Colorado Constitution to allow Christian schools to receive money from the government.
Yep.
So it's just misleading. The Prop 131, the ranked choice voting one,
Lordy.
The fiscal note in the Blue Book says that it's basically going to cost Colorado taxpayers next to nothing. Well, Kent Theory, I guess, can't keep his mouth shut because he goes on Mark Waller's show and he tells everybody that Polis has promised millions of dollars to the rollout of ranked choice voting. Why is that not in the Blue Book? I mean, there's so many issues with the Blue Book, with the messaging, with what all these initiatives are. And then you also have to sit back and ask the tough questions, right?
Yes.
Why all of a sudden do we need $1 million death benefit for police officers who've died on the line of duty, which is more than what a soldier gets if they die in combat?
That's correct.
What are we giving $1 million for? Is it because we need to entice people to become police officers because they might be killed by dangerous illegal immigrants? Is it because they want to take away our guns?
Wow.
Do we have to entice people to vote for this?
There you go. There you go. I mean, you said all, and on some of the things that are on the brochure or the pamphlet that we put together, all of us did not necessarily agree on all of it. So you may see a yes and you look at it and go, I'm not voting for that. And vote no. Then vote no. Yeah. But vote. Get out and vote. And let me say this about the initiatives on locally. The El Paso County initiatives. Listen, majority of them say the famous words, this will not increase your taxes. If they have to say it, they're going to do it. It may not mean that today your taxes are going to go up. What it means is, so this is the sunset of, let's say, I think it's 2C. It's the sunset of that. So we no longer pay taxes for 2C. What they're asking you to do is to keep it going forever. So you will be forever paying for 2C. So when they disingenuously say it will not raise your taxes, they're not being honest.
Yeah, I think that wording should be illegal, right? Because all they're saying is the fact that, like, hey, without adding any new taxes, you're just retaining the old taxes, but they're not going to tell you that.
Exactly.
They're not going to tell you, hey, guess what, guys? You could save, 0.5% on every purchase that you make in your home city if you just vote no on this measure. They don't tell you that.
No.
And where's this money going, right?
And it's for roads, right? How are your roads?
Oh,
I don't know about yours. They're terrible. So what have they been doing to the money that we have been paying, 10 years now? And now they want it forever? Stop it. Say no. If you read those words, vote no.
And in general, on any of these initiatives and any of these ballot measures, the safe choice, if you have no clue what you're reading, the safe choice is probably no.
Exactly. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Because some of them I battled with on the state initiatives. I battled, is this good or is this bad? Is this good? And I may change my mind by the time I go and vote, on November 5th. However, that's the American way.
Yeah.
Now, 131, I'm telling you right now, that will be a disaster for Colorado. It was a disaster for Alaska. It's been a disaster for California. Do we really want to be California?
No, and California doesn't even want to be California, right? We've talked about ranked choice voting in depth, but they've had some serious issues in California. Alameda, California ran a school board election. They had a programming glitch where they certified the wrong candidate to take their seat in the school board race via ranked choice voting.
Oh,
and
Lord.
4 months later, the courts overturned it and put the proper winner back in the seat. When you let computers do all the tabulations, which sometimes it's 20, 30 tabulations in ranked choice voting.
Yes.
You're going to have problems.
Yes.
And they won't admit this, but there's a reason why 6 states have banned it. A 7th state has it on their ballot to ban it.
Mm-hmm.
We have 1 state that wants to remove it after passing it just 2 years ago. That's Alaska. And we have several municipalities that have it on their election to remove ranked choice voting.
Yes.
And yet we have 4 initiatives to put it statewide in Colorado, Arizona, and 2 other states. It's nuts.
Growing up, one of the things I learned is, I grew up with 6 brothers. If I saw them get in trouble for something, I didn't do the same thing. Okay. Why in the world will we see states that are trying to repeal this because it was so devastating in their state? Can we not learn from their mistake and say no on 131? Just vote no on 131.
Yeah. Just say no to crazy liberal measures.
Yes.
Yeah. And also say no to drugs.
Say no to drugs.
Say no to drugs.
Yes, they're bad.
All right, Vicki, you got about 30 seconds. Give us where they can contact you, find more information. Give us the little lowdown.
Okay, you can reach me at chairman@gopelpaso.com. You can go to our web page, website, GOPElpaso.com. If you want to get some merch, you can come and get it at 5145 Centennial Boulevard, Suite 101. We are open Monday through Friday through the election season because we want to give you more time to come in and know how to vote correctly. El Paso County GOP.
And I will put all that information on our website, faithfamilyfit.com. Join us next Saturday and every Saturday at 9 a.m. on 100.7 The Word. Thank you, Vicki, and have a blessed day.